What is good, everybody, man? We are live. My guy, Coach, is getting back to the computer here in a second, man. But we were gonna wait till tomorrow, Thursday, just to come live. We got pushed off yesterday because Coach and myself both had some stuff come up. But man, we decided to go live. A lot to talk about today, man. We're gonna briefly hit some of the playoff games, but we're really gonna talk about the breaking news of today, which is Grambling State deciding to part ways with Hue Jackson after only 2 seasons. It makes now, I mean, listen, Southern parting ways with Eric Dooley after only 2 seasons. Grambling State parting ways with Hue Jackson after only 2 seasons. Texas Southern made their move with Clarence McKinney. Man, we have a lot to talk about, but my guy, Coach, is back. Coach, man, how we feeling?
Man, I'm good, baby. Like you said, it's been a whirlwind of a couple last days, and you know, the realization of not getting on a plane head to Tallahassee here today. But hey, getting on a plane heading to recruit is something different as well. But I'm here. Bluebloods. We got a show today. We got a show again when a couple days from
Thursday.
now. Yeah, so we rolling, man. I'm ready to go. Ready to go.
Man, let's just get right to it. Grambling. I mean, there were reports earlier in the day, Coach. I think me and you were texting about 9 o'clock about the news. I mean, it wasn't a surprise. Grambling just had their press conference officially announcing that they're parting ways with Hue Jackson after only 2 seasons. Coach, over 2 seasons, 8-14, 6-10 in the SWAC. They finished with a second consecutive loss to Southern in the 50th annual Bayou Classic last weekend. I mean, Coach, let me get your thoughts, not from a media perspective, because I think that's what we're going to get into later, but just as another coach in the business, to see now a second straight coach fired after only 2 years. What was your initial take? Because I texted you. Now, let's be fair. I texted you last week and said, "Hey, I'm hearing some rumblings," and you were like, "Nah, man, there's no way." And you hit me up today and was like, "Hey, I don't know what happened." So, what was your take when you heard the official news?
When I heard it, man, I didn't believe it at first because, like you said, it's been swirling for a while, and I'm just like, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way. I think his situation was completely different from what was going on at Southern, I thought. So when I heard it, and then I heard it again, and then that's when me and you started to communicate. We're sitting there in staff meeting, and then it was kind of one of those things where my phone went off, someone else's phone went off, someone else's phone went off, then someone else's phone went off. It went around the table, and immediately, just as a coach, the thought was, man, they're only giving you 2 years now. So it's a scary thought. You think about how the business has been in the past. There's no more Coach Bowles. There's nobody else that's going to get an opportunity, like he did to build a program the way he did at Florida State. There's no more Coach Robinsons at Grambling. There's no more Marino Chasms here at Alcorn. All those guys were in a different era and had an opportunity to take their lumps to get the program to where they wanted to be. It's almost now, man, here over the last month, that not just in the big boy conference where they give you $19 million to not come to work, it's almost now that even at our level, 1AA, that if it's not looking really, really good in year 2, there's a possibility, man, that they're going to tell you to go, hey, thank you, but no thanks. And that's the scary part of it. That's the scary part of it.
If it hasn't always been like that, especially at the FCS level. Now, to be fair, this is actually less common at non-SWAC FCS schools, because I think there's only been one coach fired under the 4-year mark, and it was the guy at Western Illinois who was 0-22, which
we talked about.
Like, listen, if you're 0-22,
that's different.
You probably deserve to be on the first bus out of town. So that's a different story. But we've seen, and the Dooley thing is weird because he had a winning record, but we both talked. I mean, there was some behind the scenes stuff that was getting really toxic, and that led to the firing. Not the win-loss record, but the relationships behind those closed doors, which are just as important as the winning and losing.
Yes.
But
Yes.
with this Grambling State one, I mean, now listen, Hue might come out and say something different, but from what we've heard, there hasn't really been any toxicity behind closed doors that's been reported.
And that's
So,
that's what's different.
because I mean, like, yes, the record of 8-14 isn't great. Like, I understand it's a losing record, but he was still improving. Like, he improved from year 1 to year 2, right? Like, what was the bar? Like, where was the bar, in my opinion? Now, I don't know. Now, listen, I'll be the
And
first
where
one
did
to
he
say,
take over? You know what I mean? What did he take over? You know, he didn't take over a program that was 7-4 or whatever. He didn't take that over. There was a reason that he was named anyway. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, you know, not to cut you off, but it wasn't like he took over a program that was 0-22. You know,
right.
it wasn't like he took over a program that was 12-0. You know, he took over a program that was on the decline. You know, a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but for 2 years straight, they had the best player in the conference, and they won, which you're supposed to do. They won with the best player in the conference, hands down, with Kincaid. They won. That's what you're supposed to do. Coming off of that, anytime you lose, and we've talked about this in other shows, anytime you lose that key player, that trigger man, which is completely different from having a Jarvion Howard, completely different from having a Bubba Adams on defense. When you lose your quarterback, that's been the focal point of your program, who's took every snap for the past 2 years, and now you insert someone new, there's going to be a decline. And that's where he came into a program that was on a decline. And like you said, it was an improvement from year 1 to year 2. I felt like, and I'll let you get back to your point, I felt like if they were going to fire him, they should have fired him when he showed up to media day with those yellow jackets. I mean, that was fireable. That was a fireable offense.
I know someone's going to call me out for it, and I want to say this: if I was the one saying if he doesn't win next year, they should fire him.
That's different.
I was willing to give him 3 years. I've been vocal throughout the offseason. You have to win eventually, because look, listen, I'm not going to question his coaching ability, because listen, the dude's coached at all levels, but as a head coach, the stats say that he has not been a great head coach.
Yep.
He didn't win in the NFL, only had 11 wins over 4 seasons in the NFL, and his Browns tenure was one of the worst in NFL history. And then he comes to Grambling, doesn't win there. Like, really and truly, when you think of Hue Jackson, his aura, his legacy, you have to go back to when Carson Palmer was at USC.
Yes, dig way back.
I mean, Coach, I was in elementary school when Carson Palmer was winning the Heisman at USC. Like, that's a long time ago. So at the end of the day, like, my question is, like, yes, it was probably a premature firing, but if he doesn't win next year, they probably make this move anyway, especially with a new president, possibly a new AD coming in. But it just is Hue living kind of off, in your opinion? Is it more of the name recognition with Hue, or are we talking about that he actually had production as a head coach? Because I think those are two different conversations.
And I think it was the name recognition, because if you're pulling, like you said, all the numbers you just said, if you're pulling what he's done as a head coach, which everyone tells you when you apply for a job, what have you done as a head coach? You have no head coaching experience. He's had head coaching experience, and it wasn't successful. So to me, you grab, and I hate to use the phrase, but they grabbed a celebrity hire, and it didn't work as quickly as they thought it would work. And I think it should have been one more year, honestly and truly. It should have been one more year. But I think they saw that it wasn't on the improvement like they were thinking it would be. I think they grabbed him thinking it would be closer to what the school up the street grabbed when they grabbed Prime, not understanding there is only one prime time in everybody's generation. Everybody's like, there's Muhammad Ali, that generation. Not saying Prime's Muhammad Ali, but he's that galvanizing. And he said himself, he never went into anybody's house and recruited. You know, people were just coming because of who he was. That wasn't happening because no one knew, none of these kids knew who Coach Jackson was. No fault of their own. I mean, no fault of theirs. They should know who he was, unlike Deion Sanders, to me. And they grabbed that celebrity hire. It didn't go as quickly as they thought it would. And I think, you know, this was the point to like, okay, let's get out. We got a new president coming in. Let's go this way. Let's go that way. But it goes back to, like you said a couple of weeks about Southern. Now, who do you get to grab this job now?
I mean, did you ever think we'd be sitting here on November 28th and Broderick Fobbs would be the interim head coach at Louisiana Monroe and Grambling would be searching for a head coach?
Not at all.
Because, yeah, I mean, because someone mentioned that to me. I don't think there's any chance they go and hire Broderick again. I'm just going to say that. But it is ironic that he is the head coach at a Group of 5 program right now. I mean, I want to ask you this because you look at jobs differently than fans, media. Mr. Campbell called into Scotty's show earlier today and was saying that Grambling really and truly isn't like this huge, like this isn't the Eddie Robinson days back when Grambling was a powerhouse. Like it's in the schools in the middle of nowhere. The facilities need upgrading. What's your true recruiting base? Like, are you the dominant program in your region? Probably not. How good is this job really outside of just the name brand of Grambling that was built years ago? Because really and truly, outside of the Kincaid years, this program hasn't been like at the forefront of HBCU football.
I question that myself. If you take away the history, like you said, you break it down to location, the facilities that I know it to be, I just don't know if it's even top in the West, let alone just the whole conference. I don't think it's the top program in the West. Now, if you sprinkle in the history, the tradition, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But removing that, because these kids don't know anything about that. You know, and a few of their parents their grandparents, yeah. But you remove that from the situation. I mean, what do you have now? What are you selling? And that's, you know, one of those things that I think they have to figure out going forward. And that's why I say, okay, so now who's your target? And I will go ahead, just because we're on the show, I will go ahead and say that sitting there at the Bayou Classic, I saw one Ed Reed walking through the crowd and the crowd going absolutely nuts, speaking to Ed Reed at the Bayou Classic. So let's go ahead and start the speculation right now. He's a Louisiana guy. He wants to coach. I would be very surprised if his name does not pop up, or if it hasn't already popped up, as the next guy to take this job, because I'm sure they're thinking that it's got to be somewhere down that line. I don't want to say a home run, but at least it's got to get to the warning track in the air. It can't get on the ground to the warning track. It's got to go in the air. And I know it makes you, your skin is crawling underneath the sweater, under the hoodie. But I sat there and watched the guy walk through the crowd, and everyone absolutely go crazy. And I was on, I'd say, the Grambling half of the stadium. So, yeah, I'm going to throw speculation into all that stuff as well, but it's not a top tier, I think, coaching destination at this moment. I don't think so.
There's no way, right? I mean,
say the same thing. But
after what happened, there's no way.
He's a Louisiana guy.
You can't make that hire. You can't. Like, I mean, you can't. But you just, there's no way.
All I'm gonna say is a Louisiana guy.
Oh God, because I mean, listen, William makes a good point. Because if you remember with the whole drama with Bethune-Cookman, he did say he was offered the Grambling job,
right?
The first time, which and that's why we got way off track. Now, listen, I just hope you know. I just hope you know the show's getting clipped, and we're going to be in every SWAC group on Facebook, just getting drugged for even mentioning his name. But the reason I was asking about the name recognition is I went back and was looking at his 1 year stint at Tennessee State as the offensive coordinator.
As the OC, yes.
It wasn't a great year. Like, they weren't good offensively. I don't know if they didn't even average 20 points per game. So that's why I asked that, because I really think they made the hire as a quote unquote celebrity hire, hoping to see that instant success. When it didn't come, they cut ties.
Stuck. Yeah, we were stuck. We were stuck, and we need to make a move quickly, is what I think. Again, and it's kind of like the Southern situation. I'm still waiting for more of that to come out, because you talk about raising over $500,000 that quick for somebody to not come back to work. It had to be pretty bad. Now, I saw some stuff on Coach Jackson's contract, which is a little, if it's true, what I saw, a little bit easier for them to absorb and take care of.
Yeah, because only 2 years were guaranteed, so they had to re-up it this year, so they don't owe him anything.
Yeah, whenever their year is done, that's when they're done with him, so to speak. When I say year, their fiscal year, that's when they're done with his part of the contract. So you start anew. Now you offer. I've heard that he was making, $380. I heard that he was making $400. I'm not counting anybody's pockets, but if you're going to offer the next guy $400, again, I say a Louisiana native, you're looking to make a splash. You're looking to re-energize your fan base. I'm just telling you, don't be surprised if you hear that. And I'm not a fan of celebrity hires. Not a fan of it. Not as a coach, because you're overlooking a lot of guys who've put in a lot of time in the business. So I'm not a fan, but don't be surprised if a Louisiana native son is asked to come back home and revitalize a program, a community, a university.
I just want to make it clear for everyone listening, not on board with it. If it happens, I'm just going to be stunned. I'll be honest. I'm going to be stunned with the way everything went down. But someone put in the chat, it is the same AD that thought he could handle the Art Browse pushback and ran with that one. And yeah, so I mean, who knows? Listen, they could go and hire Ed Reed and hire Art Browse as the OC for all I know.
The volleyball situation, same AD.
That's where I wanted to go next. If the AD misses this hire with a new president coming in next year, he's got to go, right? If he butchers another head coaching hire, you would assume that the AD's got to be out of there.
And I don't know the logistics of when they're talking about hiring a new president or how much leeway the outgoing president is able to give the AD in hiring, but they've got to do something quick. Like I said, we were planning to be at the SWAC championship game live. I got to be on a plane heading out of town to recruit for that first signing day, which is fastly approaching. And most of those kids in that signing day are kids that will be on your campus in January. And then, everybody knows about that Wednesday in February, that first Wednesday in February as your second signing day. So how much leeway is AD Scott being given to hire a coach? And how quickly are they allowing him to move in this search? Because you are running the threat of losing what's in-house and what you have a chance to bring in-house, if that makes sense. And you lose both of those, the next guy comes right back into the same situation that Coach Jackson supposedly walked into, and that you couldn't take much past 2 years. So that's going to be an interesting take to see what happens.
So in the press conference today, they said they're going to announce the hire in 7 to 10 days. That means they already got their candidate.
Yeah, because you're not hiring a firm in 7 to 10 days, and the firm is not going through all those resumes to present 3 to 5 hires to you. That don't happen in 2 weeks. So
and also, if you're that confident, you already have to be, one, and probably in contact with those people, two, and then you're confident that so you're probably, if you say that, you're probably down to what, 1, 2 candidates, probably maybe a third, depending on
no more than that.
Yeah, and you're certain one of them is going to take it, if not your top option.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it, because you can't run the risk of having A say no, B say no, and then where do we go? Because this is where we put all of our eggs. So I'm of the belief, if they're going that quick, they are on the phone right now with that coach or that coach representatives, ironing out this deal to be done next week or the week after.
Yeah, if it's that quick, I'm just trying to think, because D-Law put, an internal candidate. I mean, I'm trying to think who on that staff would even be. They announced Simon as the interim head coach, but I don't think they would give him the head coaching job.
That's a direct connection to Coach Jackson. Everybody there, I think, except for maybe 3 people, maybe 4 people out of 12 on the staff, is a direct connection to Coach Jackson. They were either with him in the NFL, they were with him at Tennessee State. Direct connection. Now, if you're willing to live with that, then why did you do that? So that's why I'm saying it's got to be something that's already, like you said, in the mix, being worked out as we talk about it.
So, someone in the chat put dually. Man, could you imagine just the drama?
I saw that, and I can't remember who tweeted that. And they were like, "Oh, it'll be a perfect match. You do great there." And I'm like, "Hey, no way."
No. So, I mean, now we sit and wait. I mean, they 7 to 10 days. We'll see. They've and like people put in the chat, they fired a lot of the staff today. So I think Simon's still there, and they're not gonna listen. I don't think they're gonna promote the DC up there, Thornton.
Well, I saw that he was one of the ones that was let go as well.
Yeah. So, and then Tony Hull just got there on the offensive staff. So there's nobody on the offensive staff outside of Simon that they would even think. So either they're going to make Simon the intern and let him stick, and he's one of the candidates, or they're hiring externally. I don't think they're promoting anybody internally. And now, I mean, I'm not going to rule out anybody, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be Dooley, just personally. I don't know. There's so many good coaching candidates out there, because Coach, there's been a lot of smoke. Like, a lot of people have been putting Tremaine's name out there, head coach at Valdosta. Texas Southern guy, SWAC ties. Yeah, has been building a monster at Valdosta. Kerwin Bell was a successful hire from Valdosta. Now, Gary Goff didn't work out in McNeese. That's probably for other reasons. But, I mean, maybe Tremaine, but I don't know. I know this is going to. Yeah, I'm not. I'll get crucified for saying it, but I mean, I talked to a coach today, and he was like, "Is Grambling really a better job than Valdosta right now?"
I mean, they're still playing on their way to a national, for the opportunity to play for a Division II national championship. So just file it away, man. I just gave you a household name. That's
if you're right, it's going to be chaos. I mean, it's going to be chaos if that hire actually happens. But I mean, so we're sitting here, Southern, Texas Southern, Grambling, now all looking for head coaches. Now, Coach, I'm sure you'll laugh at this. I had a former SWAC coach hit me up and say, man, Alcorn and PV are laughing to the bank right now. Because this is like guaranteed y'all like 2-3 years of probably being at the top of that division unless someone nails a hire.
Knock.
I mean, because for Southern and Grambling, especially because listen, Texas Southern's kind of in its own thing. I don't think they made a bad decision getting rid of McKinney. They haven't really. I mean, they've been probably a game or two away from winning the West, but that's not a program that I think's in dire need like to make a perfect hire. Southern and Grambling, on the other hand, because you know this, one bad hire can set your program back 2, 3, 4 seasons.
Easy.
Back-to-back bad hires can set your program back for a decade. So Southern and Grambling, the ADs, whoever's making the final decision, has to nail this hire, or it could be a long next few seasons for both of those programs.
And we're not even talking about on the field. We're talking about within the alumni, within the campus community. Could be a very, very long situation if you don't get close to making sure that this is the right person, like I said, not just on the field, but with the kids within your community and the whole nine. This could be a really, really, in the words of Rod Wave, lonely, cold December if the fan base or the kids don't like who you bring in that situation. I'm looking now. I've been trying to find out what all happened, and I don't know. I guess Hue Jackson and Coach Thornton have been let go, and possibly Delgado.
Yeah.
So I'm still combing through trying to find if there was anybody else or whatever. So
Jerome said, look at what happened to my Aggies. Went from smoking all corn in the Celebration Bowl, sorry, coach, to getting smacked weekly in the CAA.
One of them you did. I'm not gonna lie. Y'all
yeah, that last year was that last year was bad. I'm not gonna lie. That was a tough year.
Y'all boat racist. The year before, I got questions about some of those calls, but we'll talk about that on a later show.
Coach, so if you had to make a bet, because now we know Grambling's 7 to 10 days reportedly. I mean, that's their plan. Now, if candidates turn them down, that could be another option. Do you think Southern or Texas Southern make their announcement before Grambling?
I think Southern has to. Just because, unless you're going to stay with Coach Graves, you got to be coming with it pretty quick because you've been out of it longer. Texas Southern, like you said, I think that's just a different beast. We'll see what they're cooking up. But I think the next guy at Texas Southern may have a longer leash than these other two programs, so to speak. But I think Southern's they've got to be ready to drop here in the next week, 2 weeks max.
Yeah, I'm with you because I've heard Texas Southern wants to get it done before the early signing day. So that's kind of their timeline, which is what, December 20th?
Yep.
That's a long timeline because I would assume you would want it at least a week before. So that's probably about what, the second week of December?
And you're hoping that guy has, 11 other guys that can come run with him right now to hit the ground running. If that's your plan, to give them an opportunity to pull something off in the first signing day, then, I'm talking to you right now about, okay, who do you have as this? Who do you have as this position? Who do you have at that position? And he's got to have it to a T. And all those guys got to be ready to run right now. They can't be in programs that are still playing. They can't be in programs that are holding them until, January or whatever. Those guys have got to be able to run that Monday. They've got to be there to sign, get keys, get school credit cards, and they've got to head out to their areas right now if they're trying to capture this first signing day.
So I know I've talked to a few coaches about it. And outside of you, how often do most coaches, once they get the first interview, start calling assistants? like guys that they would want to be on their staff. So like, coach, you get contacted for Southern, first interview, interest, they might bring you back for a second interview. Do you already start getting your staff together for the second interview? That way you could be like, hey man, I'm gonna bring coach A, coach B, coach C for these positions.
Yeah. Hey B, I got an interview for it. We already know that there was a large pool to pull from. I got pulled from it. I got one. Just be ready. And then when you get that second one, now you start making those other calls. Hey man, second interview, this day could be pop, it could pop at such and such date. Can you go? Oh, you can't go. Okay, boom. Now it's on to the next. So now you got time to, go through your 2D, so to speak, of guys that will be ready to run with you at the drop of a hat. So yeah, after that first one, you get your few key pieces, the guys that you're going to be true with, that are going to be true with you. Then if you get that second interview, then you got to have that whole staff on call, ready to rock.
It's gonna be it's gonna be interesting, man. We got so much. We could talk about. My last question for you, coach, because I now want to get to the SWAC awards because I got I'm gonna be on my soapbox today.
I'm gonna stand with you.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with it. I'm assuming, but with the introduction of the transfer portal, as an incoming coach, because we know with the NCAA rules, once a coach is let go, retires, those kids get a special deadline to enter the portal.
Yes.
Even if they've already transferred once, they get another free transfer if their coach is let go, coach quits or anything. Do you, in your opinion, or your experience at least, how focused should you be on retaining players who have already entered the portal? Because we know players are going to enter before the hire is made. If you get brought into a job, do you just focus on finding new guys to bring in, or do you call those guys and it's like, hey man, new head coach here, like we want you to come back, like give them your pitch, or do you just move on from those guys?
You got to give them your pitch because you got to have things in house to get off the ground running with. So you don't want, and I'm not recruiting him, but I'm just using MC as an example. You don't want him leaving or putting his name in that situation to leave and you having to start all over again, because now you are really starting all over again. So, you got to go through the guys that have asked to enter their name in. You got to go through and, for lack of a better way to put it, you got to prioritize who, and you got to have a meeting with those guys immediately. That's got to be your first order of business once you get on campus. Sign the contract first, because we know what happens if you don't sign the contract and something happens. Sign the contract first. Your next order of business has got to be to get to those kids who are 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so on, as keeps in your program that you want. So yeah, you got to get with those guys first. And then if those guys aren't hearing you, now we hit the road knowing that we've got to replace such and such, such and such, such and such position. And we can hit that and really focus on that really, really hard because we know we don't have that in-house now.
Yeah, I just didn't know, because I've talked to different coaches and they've kind of taken different approaches. Like, obviously, there's some kids that they just don't want.
Yeah.
And listen, it's probably a good thing to hit the portal, but there's other ones obviously that you would want to have back. But coach, SWAC announced postseason honors, and listen, we aren't going to cover every conference postseason honors because we just don't have that time. But listen, we got a SWAC coach with us, and I got some opinions, so we're gonna talk about it. Coach, your first impressions of the postseason awards this year?
Man, I don't want to say disappointed.
You can say disappointed.
I was disappointed because to me, it wasn't about the kids that did the job in between the lines. It wasn't about that. It was about, let's find the kids on the two teams that's playing for the championship, and let's pack the teams with these kids. Let's pack the teams with these household names from within and kind of go from there. I know you're going to get on the soapbox, but I'm going to get on one as well. You have like the number 2 defense in the conference, and you have one guy make all conference. Our defensive end made all conference.
Go ahead,
We had two,
Yeah.
he had to make second team. He had to make one of the teams because he made FCS National Player of the Week. So you had two guys, but we have a DB who has, big time interceptions, buku tackles. We have a linebacker that has buku tackles. Numbers that were better than guys that made first or second team. So it's like me and you talked about the voters for the poll, top 25. I need to know what goes into you voting. As we talked to Coach Matt, he's hesitant to vote for anybody that we haven't played or that he hasn't seen for that very reason. So when you talk about Malik Rogers having top 5 average per catch in the country not make any of those teams, that tells me that they don't know who Malik Rogers is, or they just did not want to vote for Malik Rogers. And I'm just using him. But I know the example you're going to use, and it's just not enough room for both of us to stand on that soapbox. So I'm going to sit back and let you get on it, because I couldn't believe it happened another year. The first year, okay, that kid's in the NFL.
Three times now?
Yeah.
Including preseason?
Yeah. It's not even okay, yeah, he had 100 tackles. He had 101 tackles. It's not even like that. It's not even close.
It's like almost 40 tackles difference?
Yeah, it's not even close. No. So I'm gonna get off and I'm gonna let you get on.
It's funny. It's funny. I was on the phone with an assistant coach in the SWAC for about 2 hours last night, and we went through the list together. And we just kind of went back and forth of my thoughts, his thoughts, and everything. Coach, the amount of names on the list where he was just like, bro, he is garbage. Like, that was the guy we targeted. When we watched the film to prepare for this team, we said, that's the guy we need to go.
We want to go there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it just before we get to the main soapbox, Mikey Victor, second team, arguably the best corner in the entire SWAC. Statistic, graded,
just declared for the NFL.
I mean, Coach, this is what gets me is we have guys in the conference now in back-to-back years who are second team All-SWAC, but FCS All-Americans.
Does not add up.
I got to get it. And then, Coach, you played this guy. I find it very hard pressed that Jacob Williams was a second team All-SWAC linebacker.
Well, again, I don't know if they really know who these kids are, because you talk about him, you talk about the other soapbox you're about to get on. Terrence Ellis for us didn't make any team.
That was a name that the coach I talked to yesterday, he was like, these are the guys that, where are they? And Terrence was one of those. He was like, that kid could have been first team.
Yeah, had numbers 2 years in a row, just like your other soapbox. And I just don't understand what we're going off of. And it goes back to, I can't remember what show, but like we talked about the MVP, like we talked about the preseason honors, because there was a strong argument for someone else to win Offensive Player of the Year in the conference.
That one didn't shock me as much because I know how the SWAC that's going. I'm convinced, and I put in the chat. I said, "What?" I asked everyone. I said, "What does a running back have to do to win the award?" The consensus was be a quarterback. That's it. That's how you win.
Texas Southern did work. He did freaking work.
And I think, listen, I don't think Shador didn't deserve it last year, but even if Shador wasn't there, I still don't think they give it to Jarvion. Like, take Shador out of the SWAC last year, I think they give it to Musa.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure
that's the crazy part. That's what bothers me, because Shedeur deserved it. I'm not taking away from Shedeur, but is there anyone that disagrees with me that if you take Shedeur out of the equation, that they don't give it to Musa last year too?
That's where it's leading to.
And I kind of get the offensive player of the year bothers me, just not as much as defensive, because you have even though it shouldn't factor in, you have a kid who was on a 3-win team who just lost to UAPB. Like, that's going to factor into voting, and I understand that. But Jacob Williams, coach, from the Mike spot, everyone knows what the role of a Mike linebacker is. It's not to create almost 20 tackles for loss from the Mike spot. I don't think people understand how hard that is if you really understand what the role of a Mike linebacker is.
And where he's coming from to do all that. He's
Insane.
Not coming from outside. He's coming from inside with bodies all around him. And, week after week after week, the kid's just a problem. And, I get it, like you said, the win-loss, but I have a problem with that, because if we're saying it's about what you do as an individual, what team you're on shouldn't matter. I don't care if the kid was at, and I'm just using UAPB, if the kid's at UAPB and he runs for 2,000 yards and they're 1-10, that kid still ran for 2,000 yards. He still ran for how many ever touchdowns, and he was on the worst team, which to me should boost his votes, his OR, because he did it on a bad team. But we're saying this is an individual thing, position by position by position. So again, not taking anything from Musa, but I can remember at points and times in the year when it was just like at a lull, when it wasn't impressive. And the kid from Texas Southern just continued to put up 100-yard game after 100-yard game after 100-yard game after 200-yard game after 200-yard game. And, I would like to see the vote count. I know we won't see that, but I would like to think that he was within a couple votes of winning the situation, winning player of the year. But I'm kind of like you. I think at this point it should just be made a separate award, best quarterback in the league, and then most valuable offensive player in the league. Just separate it, because that's where it's leaning anyway.
And then, I just need to know, who Colton Adams made mad in the SWAC office, or, whose daughter he didn't call back after the first date, or, did he hit someone too hard for an opposing coach? What else does he need to do, coach? Back-to-back seasons with 120 plus tackles, had almost 20 tackles for loss again from the Mike position.
Yep.
Had more than 3 sacks, had double-digit tackles in every single game this year, but 2
that he didn't finish.
And then you need a signature game on the road against Jackson. Had 15 tackles with almost 4 tackles for loss against Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't know how people vote, but I know this. I have the show with you. We've talked about Bubba. I know other assistants in the SWAC that I've asked about them. Every coach I've talked about says when you play Alabama State, the first person you have to game plan for is number 1. Defensively. I just, what else? I don't know. And then 2, because the win-loss thing, we'll get into that. His defense, he's been the leader of a defense coach that has finished back-to-back seasons top 2 or 3 statistically in the conference in 2 consecutive years. And the defense is the only reason Alabama State won a single game in the past 2 years.
Oh, it's the reason they were in games, because of those guys. And it was a very impressive unit that let me down at the end, but that's a whole nother show. But those guys kept it within an arm's reach for a for a struggling offense. They kept it within an arm's reach. They just continued to get off the field. In some games, they scored more than the offense. When you're talking about a unit, they were a unit. They had a good thing at all levels, up front, in the middle, on the outside, and in the back. They had a very impressive defensive unit that they ran out there, and he was the key piece.
Coach, they did not have a team, including FAMU at home, that scored more than 23 points this year.
That's all you ask as a coach, as an offensive coach. If it's a race to 24, we got a chance.
I'm lost. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, and it was funny because I saw BJ Jones, man. Shout out to my guy BJ tweet. He was like, "Does Bubba play in the SoCon or the OVC? Like, does he play in another conference?" Because like it's getting to the point where Coach, I kept myself from saying it in the preseason. It's almost looking personal at this point. Like, there's not even a good argument now.
Yeah, I don't know how you look at those numbers, even if you've never seen them play, and you look at the numbers, the body of work. I mean, you circle that name.
Yeah,
it's
and
the guy with the most.
The only response I've gotten for it is that Isaiah Major is a better NFL prospect than Bubba.
That has nothing to do with the award.
It's the exact same argument why they gave it to Sundiata preseason.
It has nothing to do with the award.
I mean, that would be like if the FCS didn't give Lindsey Scott the Walter Payton because he wasn't the top NFL prospect coming out of the FCS.
But you can't use that and then you give it to Musa, because you can't tell me Musa's a better prospect than Jarvion.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I'm just at this point, I just don't even know what to say anymore. I mean, look, if I'm Bubba, I am promoting the fact that I'm an FCS All-American just to stick it to the conference office.
Oh, I'm tagging him. I mean, as soon as I get that award, I'm tagging him in it.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, he's going to be an FCS All-American. And listen, I think Isaiah Major is a hell of a player. He's not going to be an FCS All-American.
No, and I think the corner is a better prospect. If that's the argument we're using,
I mean, give it to Sundiata. He didn't have the stats for it, but he's probably the top NFL prospect coming out of the conference right now.
If that's what we're saying.
I mean, and they gave. I don't know. I don't know how Taj Brown didn't get first team. Personally, then too, even though I don't know if he would be first team, but in back-to-back years, the SWAC has not had a major statistical leader make the all-conference team. Last year was Nelson Jordan, who led the SWAC in sacks and wasn't all-conference. Insane. And then this year, the guy who leads the SWAC in interceptions, which is the kid from Jackson, not on all-conference either. How do you lead a conference in a not just a random stat, but a major statistical category and not get all conference? How are you not one of the best players in your position, regardless of how the interceptions come, how the sacks come? If you lead the conference in something, you're probably one of the best players at that position in the conference. I would assume.
You should be guaranteed a spot somewhere.
Yeah, at least second team. At least, listen, I get it. Because I will say defensive back is loaded in the SWAC. Because I mean, I think first team's probably locked up, because I think it probably should have been Mikey, Jordan Carter from Southern, the kid from FAM, was it Bowler?
Yeah.
Amari Hill Robinson from Bethune, who's a stud. And then you could probably debate that fifth. Well, I think the SWAC only has 4 spots. That's another thing. Timothy put in the chat, I've been preaching for 3 years. It's so outdated just to have 2 wide receivers on the all-conference list on each team.
Because everybody plays with at least 3.
Coach, if I go back and look at the film, how many times did Alcorn run a 2 wide receiver set?
Man, if we went percentage, Oh man,
Less than 5.
Oh, ain't no doubt. I was leaning closer to 2.
And take out goal line. Take out goal line.
Oh yeah, I'm leaning closer to 2.
Yeah, no one runs 2 wide receiver sets anymore,
and nobody plays with 3 linebackers.
No, and nobody, and really and truly, I mean, the problem with the SWAC is they kind of have edge rushers put in the D line and linebacker categories. They don't make that distinction. That's the other thing. You have to settle, like, is an edge rusher going to classify as a DL or is he going to classify as a linebacker? We saw that last year where they had I forgot who the edge rusher was as a D lineman, but then they had Niles Gaddy as a linebacker. It was like they both play edge rusher, but you can't separate it. So that's the other problem with that. And then I think you got to add more than 4 DBs too, because most of the teams throughout the year run 5, especially bringing in like that hybrid position, whatever each team calls it. Yeah, that's what they run. And the 4-2-5 really and truly, I mean, it's so variable. You got to change that, because that kind of screwed out some wide receivers, because you only had 4 wide receivers make all conference, which is weird.
No doubt about it. I'm with you on that. And then, one of the former Jackson coaches, I remember him making a bid for either a third all-conference or a freshman all-conference team. And I think that's something that is needed as well, because you give those younger guys, or you give that third receiver that should be or fifth receiver that should make that team, you give that kid an opportunity to make one of those teams. But then again, I don't know, some of the voting, kid probably still wouldn't make it. But, you at least give the option of having first team, second team, third team, or first team, second team, all freshmen, whatever. But I think you've got to look at, like you said, going back, because no one runs with just 2 receivers. No one runs with just 2 receivers on fullback. Most people, when they run out there, there's at least 3 receivers on the field.
Yeah,
at all times,
if not more.
If not more.
It's usually 4 is probably the strong majority for most sets in the SWAC.
Yeah, no doubt. That would have a higher
because I like the all freshman team, because I thought the kid from Valley, the freshman tight end they have, had a heck of a year. Yeah. And do I think he's because there was a big distinction, Coach, because I do agree, like, stats can't be everything, but they have to count a little bit. Listen, we went from preseason not having any tight ends to talk about other than DJ Stevens to having like a cluster of tight ends that all had good years. The kid from Texas Southern, DJ, y'all's guy who got first team, and the kid from Valley. I mean, the kid from Valley led all tight ends in receiving yards and wasn't on all conference as a true freshman.
Yeah. And that would have been where he should have been, on the all freshman team or whatever,
Yeah. Shout out to him, though. He was an FCS freshman All-American for us, man. So he did get his shine in terms of FCS, because I want to say he had the most receiving yards of any freshman in the country for a tight end for a freshman. So, man, shout out to him for that, man. He was out there balling out. But, Coach, man, we've already hit an hour. So quickly, I mean, another big hire that was announced, Tre Lamb going to ETSU, East Tennessee State, after really rebuilding Gardner-Webb over his 4 seasons. Coach, he led the Running Bulldogs to the first 2 playoff appearances in school history, first postseason win at the FCS level last season over Eastern Kentucky. I mean, a lot of people thought he was a shoo-in for the Tennessee Tech job. He coached there as the OC. He played there, led the program to the first conference championship in over 30 seasons. Your thoughts real quick on Lamb going to ETSU?
Man, because we talked about Gardner-Webb last week and how well they've been playing, and the job that he had been doing there. I can say that I'm surprised just because of what he had built there and what they were building, that he wouldn't hold it for a little while, maybe another season, and try to make a bigger splash, so to speak. But, he's a guy, I think, that's proven that he can build. And I'm sure that led them down the road to him. And it's going to be interesting to see now where does Gardner-Webb? Do they stay in-house? Do they try to keep one of those guys, kind of like we talked about a while back with Austin P, so to speak? If he happened to leave, where do they go? And I still think he's a name, just because of his energy. And I'm getting off topic, but I do believe that he will not be there next year as well, because I think there's going to be somebody that's going to actually come and yell at him to leave the Govs, just because of the job that he's done.
We'll have to get Scotty on, man. I'll
I don't even know him, so I'm not his agent. But
yeah, I'll have to shoot him a text and get him on here, man. But he would definitely be deserving. I want to say he was the youngest head coach in college football when P hired him. I think Lamb's going to do great things, man. He was building something special at Gardner-Webb, and ETSU has significantly more resources. And in terms of hiring internally, he's taken the big names from Gardner-Webb. I've already talked to someone. The main guys are coming with him. Associate head coach coming with him. D coordinator coming. Like, he's bringing his crew with him, which that's common. So I don't think they're hiring internally there. Yeah.
No. This is one that we didn't get, and someone just hit me, and being that I'm in media now, I can't tell you who, but don't be surprised if the coach from Benedict is not the next coach at Grambling. If not what I said earlier, this is supposedly a target. Now, I don't know how that fits, but they're pretty convinced that he is a target.
I don't know if you can hit this question or not. I'll pull it up just in case. Someone wanted to know your opinion on when you guys are going to hire an OC and special teams coordinator. Are y'all hiring within or going to look outside? I don't know how much you can give on that.
So when we're talking about hiring within, our resources don't allow us to have 35 GAs and special assistants and all that. So there's no hire within. So he's looking to he's looking into that now, sorting names and things like that. So we'll do that before the signing day.
Yeah, and I mean the closest thing to a hire within would be just promoting Phillips to main OC. I think that's probably the closest. I don't think you're going to promote anyone inside, because special teams coordinator really isn't a position that like you keep someone on staff like as a future special teams guy. Yeah, like so. Yeah, that would definitely. I figured that one was come outside, and yeah, we'll see. I mean, you got to do your due diligence in terms of OC, man. That's a big.
It's got to be the right fit. We are a little different, man. Here, location. What we have here. He's very particular about the guy that comes in, the guys that come in, just because they've got to understand where they're coming. I can say this on the show because you've been here. A lot of people think with the success that we've had that once you get off Highway 61, it's going to be the yellow brick road. And it's the farthest thing from the yellow brick road. So, you got to understand what you're coming into. You got to be willing to come into it. Roll your sleeves up and let's go to work. And it's got to be that kind of guy, that kind of fit for this program.
And one last thing, if they, and also I'm sure Coach will vouch for me here, if they do end up promoting Phillips to the OC, they still need an O-line coach. And so that would be another hire outside the program. So regardless, you need two guys outside the program. It'll just be delegating duties after that. Coach, another hire that was announced today, Blaine McCorkle was announced the head coach at Northwestern State today, 16th head coach in school history. And that's after spending 6 seasons as the head coach at Belhaven, which is a Division III program in Jackson.
Yep, in Mississippi here. Yep.
Listen, he led the Blazers to the first conference championship in school history, first appearance in the D3 playoffs, and set the school record for wins this year at 9-2. And his 7-3 record in 2021 was the first winning season since 2012.
Yeah, long time. His name has history here. From my understanding, his dad was a prominent coach here in the state as well.
Yep.
Now, I will say that I was a little surprised by the hire because I thought that, they would come after I don't want to say bigger names, but a more established name for that situation that they have going on. Because it's
that also coaches in the state.
Yeah, it's a big fix.
I can say it because listen, I was the one that talked to you about it. I personally thought they were going to hire Cooley at Delta State.
Yeah.
I know I got Delta State, some Delta State alum that watched the show. I know I know they interviewed a lot of top D2 coaches, but I think McCorkle showed that he can rebuild a program. And listen, I'll be honest, this is a rebuild job.
Oh,
like this isn't a 2-3 year rebuild for Northwestern State. This is a 5-6 year rebuild, possibly at Northwestern State.
To you.
Yes, because they haven't had a winning season since 2008. What happened at the end of the season was so tragic. You're going to have such a mass exodus. There's a lot of distrust. Yeah, I've heard President AD, like there's a lot of jobs potentially on the line with how that thing went down. You're going to have to be patient with him. I think it was a risky job taking it, but I think that he's shown that, because listen, Belhaven was not good at all before he stepped in. So I think this was a solid hire. I don't think it's a flashy hire, but at worst case, he can get the program in the right direction, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's going to be whoever the president is, whoever the AD is, they're going to have to commit to a long-term situation, because that thing that, ended the season is still in front of them. There's still things that are going to be on the fallout from that. So, they are really starting over from the ground up. A lot of kids left. You had your graduation, and like you said, the trust level is going to have to be earned. It's going to have to be brought back up. And that's not just from the kids. It's from the donors, the community, everybody that's involved with a program that makes a program successful. You've got to buy those people back in now. So this is not going to be a 2-3 year process. Like you said, this is going to be, hey, man, we're committed to you for at least 5, and we're willing to re-up after that 5 as long as we're going in the right direction. And understanding, the goal is to win 1 game, and then we'll go from there. Not, hey, man, championship or we're done. No, win 1 game, and we'll build from there. That's the mentality that they've got to have going forward, I think.
The other big announcement today. Now, nothing's official in terms of the hire, but I did get a name that they're going. That's the direction they're going. But UC Davis head coach Dan Hawkins has stepped down after 7 seasons. He's still going to be a special assistant in the athletic program, but he made this move to spend more time with his family. It was a family decision, but he's still going to be involved with the program. Listen, man, he's been in coaching forever. He did great things at UC Davis, but coach, the speculation is right now that after Tim Plow to be the next head coach, Plow's currently the tight ends coach at Cal right now in the Pac-12, or formerly Pac-12, I guess, in a few weeks. But he served as the offensive coordinator at UC Davis under Hawkins for 4 seasons, had 3 consecutive years with a top 10 passing attack, and led 2 players, wide receiver Keelan Doss and quarterback Jake Meyer, to the Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year honors in back-to-back seasons. And
they, with the dissolving of the Pac-12, I think this would be a great move. A program UC that's on the rise did some things this year. I think if they can get this finalized, it'll be a good deal for them. I just think the problem with that is that someone else is going to come after that showing they had on Saturday. Cal, I just think someone else is going to come and offer those guys spots in different places, because they did an excellent job Saturday on national TV with what they do offensively. Their kids played really well. Now, if UC can hold on to this hire, it's a great one. But I just think that with everybody going every which way right now, bigger names may come for that type of coach, on the West Coast.
Also, right for the show, North Carolina A&T fired their offensive coordinator. Not a surprise after the season that they had. So Vincent Brown needs him a new OC. And yeah, I think that was coming regardless. Because we talked we were talking in November, and I don't think they threw for 1,000 yards.
And they had one of the craziest stats of our show season, where they threw for less than 15 yards that 1 week. Like,
yes, it was bad. I still don't know. I'm pulling it up right now. I don't know if they threw for 1,000 yards this year. I'll be 100% honest. Let's see. Okay, they did. They got to 1,000 yards. They got to 1,100. They had they averaged 104 yards per game somehow. 8 interceptions, 5 picks. That's tough.
That's man. Yeah, threw for less than 15 yards one game. That's what that kind of gets you.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. But hey, shout out to them. They threw for over 160 in the final 4 games. So big turnaround there toward the end of the year. But man, final topic. We're not going to go super in depth for the games, man. We just want to hit them because we didn't get to go live yesterday, man. Tune in Thursday, SWAC championship preview and the second round of the FCS playoffs preview. Coach, we saw this one coming. No, I mean, I'll read it off and we'll move on. North Dakota State 66, Drake 3. As the Bison score 66 unanswered points and hold Drake to 177 total yards and force 5 turnovers. Any comment on that one?
Say that to yourself out loud. 66 unanswered. Yeah, we can move on, man. That was a nice first round draw, man, for anybody that needed their confidence, that needed a boost going into the playoffs. They called the right freaking bye. Right there, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you allow non-scholarship schools into the postseason. North Dakota State will travel to number 6 Montana State this weekend. Man, a huge matchup. I can't wait to talk about that one. Coach, Sacramento State getting it done. Shout out to them, man. I really wanted to pick them. Me and you both hesitated on it because of the quarterback situation. But Coach, I just want to read this off. Caden Bennett, after getting benched for a freaking true freshman, goes 17 for 22, 207 through the air, 126 on the ground for 3 total touchdowns. And that was they didn't think was what was the leader of the offense.
10 yards per rush coming off the bench. I think he was focused.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Caden Bennett solidified his spot. And I really do think, I mean, Sacramento State's defense allowed 35 points, but they forced a crucial interception at the end of the first half to kind of give them that leg up in a big shootout. They held North Dakota to only 137 passing yards. Armand Bailey had a big game at linebacker. Coach, if they can play like that offensively, I like their chances against South Dakota this weekend on the road in another dome environment, so the weather's not going to be a big issue. I think they match up really well with South Dakota, who doesn't have the offensive firepower that North did. And if you can get into another shootout, I like the Hornets' chances.
Yep, give yourself an opportunity. If that Caden Bennett shows up.
Oh, man. Outstanding game for Caden Bennett, man. Shout out to him. Coach, another game. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but Youngstown State 40, Duquesne 7, as Youngstown State had the ball for over 42 minutes of possession times. Coach, Duquesne was only able to run 44 plays in total, less than 150 offensive yards. Your thoughts?
That's complete domination. Now there's 60 minutes in a ball game. Let's just make sure everybody understands that. There's 60 minutes in a ball game, and they had the ball for over 40 minutes. So, Duquesne would have had to have been really, really, really efficient with the limited amount of touches they had, and they just wasn't. And since we're here, the walk-on apparel battle receiver, fly zone receiver of the week, man. Bryce Oliver, man, young man went 8 for 181, touchdown, averaged over 20 yards a catch. And they did all that while really just forcing their will, imposing their will on Duquesne, man. And the kid still was able to come up with over 100 yards in receiving. Big shout out to him.
Bryce is a stud, man. Shout out to him. Coach, let's see. Hang on, my bad. Youngstown State next week goes to Villanova. That's one of the more competitive matchups, I think, next week. 11 a.m. kickoff, too. Another blowout, Coach. Southern Illinois, 35. Nicholls State, nothing. It wasn't really super competitive. I mean, Coach, we talked about Nicholls' rushing attack coming into the game, held to 75 rushing yards, four sacks on McQuaid at quarterback. Roe Elliott, returning from injury, had a massive game. They were efficient, Coach. I mean, 8 for 13 on third downs. I just thought Southern Illinois, one, was the better team, and they played like it on Saturday.
Forced 3 turnovers.
Yeah.
3 turnovers in playoffs get you in trouble.
This weekend, though, Coach, Southern Illinois, Idaho. They flexed the game to ESPN2, 9 p.m. Central kickoff. Man, that offensive fireworks with Roe Elliott, with that wide receiving core for Southern Illinois, Nick Baker at quarterback. You got Giovanni McCoy on the other side, Hayden Hatton, Anthony Woods at running back. It's going to be some offensive fireworks Saturday night on ESPN2.
And we'll talk about it. I just hope I hope the week off, the bye week, didn't put them on too much of a cruise control, because they've got a team coming in that's starting to peak at the right time, man, and can put up some points.
Mercer, Gardner-Webb. Mercer gets to win 17-7, a defensive battle. Ty James does this thing. I mean, 7 for 100. Mercer dominated the time of possession. They held Gardner-Webb to only 280 on total yards. Miles Weston got 2 big picks. Coach, man, Mercer, they lived up to the hype. They got in the playoffs for the first time, get the first win in school history in the FCS playoffs, man. How'd you feel about the Bears' performance?
Congratulations. Had a heck of a year.
Man, finally.
Heck of a year.
I was so worried that they... Go ahead.
I said they forced 4 turnovers. Heck of a year, man. I just think, like you said, they went from taking a downhill plunge early to picking it up and kept it moving and got a chance to get in the playoffs, got a win. Now I think they should just be on a sightseeing tour, because this next matchup is going to be anything but good for them. But, heck of a year, man. Heck of a year.
Well, one second. Let me pull it up. I want to make sure I get the right number. Because they were talking about it last night on the South Dakota State show. What do you think the line is?
I'm going to say the early line has Mercer getting 16.
28.
Crazy Moses. I'm going to say
20. They're 28-point underdogs with an over-under of 49.
Man, 28's a lot.
That's a lot of points.
Oh, that's a lot.
That hurts my heart. It really does, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, like, you got to think that's how good the South Dakota State team is.
28, man.
Did they beat the number 4 team in the country by 31 on the road?
I get it. I do.
God.
28.
Yeah, that's brutal, man. But shifting over, probably the biggest upset of the weekend for me, in my opinion, Chattanooga, 24-21 over Austin P. Chattanooga hits the 35-yard game-winning field goal. Coach, Chattanooga does this without their starting running back, without their starting quarterback, starts a true freshman, and they lose their All-American edge rusher halfway through the game, and they still found a way to get it done. They held Austin Peay to the second lowest total passing yards of the season, only 107 through the air. Man, Chattanooga surprised me getting it done on the road, so banged up. That was a signature win, but I think it might end, Coach. Just an update for this upcoming game against Furman, Coach. Tyler Huff is back. Dominic Roberto is back. All their defensive starters are back, and Chattanooga will be without the All-American edge rusher who's out for the season, quarterback out for the season. Yeah, it's great everything.
It's a great season. It's a great season, man. Welcome to the playoffs. see your way to the left, and we'll see you guys next season.
I hate it for him. But Coach, I a game that I told everyone, listen, if you listen to this show, you made money this weekend. I said take Lafayette with the points. 36-34 win for Delaware, but Coach, Lafayette was leading 28-7 as their starting quarterback goes down with an injury. Delaware scores 26 on extra points, never looks back. I mean, in the second half, Coach, Delaware held Lafayette to 85 total yards and forced 3 turnovers just in the second half. Cannot win playoff football games like that.
That's where it got away from them. Halftime was at 28-14 at the half. And you come back in the third and you have those turnovers. And the thing about Delaware with those turnovers that they got touchdowns on key ones, which switched the momentum. And, again, you can't turn it over in the playoffs, especially good versus good teams.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of that game, man. Shout out to Delaware, though. They got it done. Joshua Youngblood had a huge game. The quarterback situation continues to be a question mark for them, but hey, they're finding ways to get it done. Now, I will say Delaware goes to Montana next week. Probably a wrap on the season as they're headed to the CUSA now. They start their transition next year, and hey, another exit to the FBS. We'll see. Probably not going to be on a good note next week against Montana. But Coach, the final game, the one everyone wants to talk about, I know. My heart is hurting on this one because I was driving the bandwagon for Central. Richmond, North Carolina Central 27, and Coach, Richmond outscored North Carolina Central 42-7. After an early 20-7 lead for Central, man. Your thoughts on this one?
That thing got out of hand in the second half.
That's an understatement.
When you talk momentum, man, it's real. And at some point, Richmond was able to get the momentum flipped. And when you talk about just a total domination on the ground for them, I think it just took a lot of, and you said this was going to be an issue if they could not stop the run, and Central couldn't stop the run, giving up over 200 yards on the ground and over 500 yards of total offense. If you can't stop the run and you don't run it at a close to or equal clip that you're giving up, you're going to be in trouble. And that, was the doom for Central. Even though they led in time of possession, when you give up over 200 yards rushing and you get less than 100, that allows the other team to control the situation. And when they got up, it was just it wasn't any coming back.
No, and I mean it shows. I know how tough it is losing your starting quarterback mid-game to injury. But I don't think I've ever seen a team's momentum sucked out like that. I mean, it was just ridiculously fast. I mean, Davius goes out, and then it was just like all hell broke loose. I want to say they had like 6 or 7 consecutive drives without a score and without a first down.
The whole sideline went
hush, and he got hurt on a touchdown. That's like the worst part of it too, and. With Davius out, and then even when he came back, Davius banged up. He was banged up against Howard. Davius not at 100%. That program just isn't there.
Yeah,
it seems like the rest of that team wasn't able to pick up the slack because when Davius injured his hand against Howard, you saw how quickly that game got out of hand. It was literally the spitting image of what happened with Howard. Davius gets banged up. Their defense is on the field too long. The opponents start running down their throat.
And you could see it was on the mind of every last one of those kids. They couldn't play from that thought. And then, like I said, even when he came back at that point, it had flipped and there was no way of getting it back unless he turned into, Superman out there. There was no way he was going to flip back. And that fourth quarter, Richmond just slammed the door. And, it's unfortunate, for that to happen. to Davis, but as a team, you've got to be able to pick it up. And I know it's easier said than done, but to watch your leader go down, somebody else has got to come up. The next leader on the other side of the ball has got to get everybody together and say, "Hey, man, this is what we got to do." Instead, I think everybody's just like stunned. Like, what are we gonna do now? And then by the time they tried to get it back, it was too late. It was too late.
Wickersham had a heck of a game for Richmond. 16-23, almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. They held North Carolina Central to under 70 yards rushing, less than 2.5 yards per carry.
Yep.
Marlon Lewis, All-American defensive end, 3 sacks this past weekend. They really had trouble with the front 7 of Richmond, even when they were rolling. Even up 20-7, it was Davius's athleticism that really kind of bailed them out of those situations, because Richmond goes on to face UAlbany, 2 CAA teams. They didn't play this year, but Richmond leads the all-time series 7-0. So UAlbany can make a lot of history getting the first win over Richmond, getting that playoff victory. It's going to be a huge second round, guys. Tune in Thursday. We'll get with y'all on the time. Probably going to be 4:30 as usual, as me and Coach Fred preview the second round of the playoffs, and on top of that, the SWAC championship, FAMU versus PV. Coach, man, any final thoughts on, man, we went almost an hour 30 on this one, man. We had a lot to talk about. Any final thoughts on a hectic week across HBCU FCS football?
Man, it's got to be some hires made, and some hires made quick. The timing of this is just, I don't want to say horrible, but the timing of this is kind of horrible. When you're talking about programs that are trying to build and get over the hump. Like you said earlier, this could set you back. Not a season, but a couple seasons. So, this is going to be interesting to fall out, to hear how it went from everything is fine on Saturday, Sunday, to we're moving in a different direction on Tuesday. So, I'm really interested to see what's said on that end of things. And next, Thursday, man, we've got some games, man. I got to find my Idaho shirt. I got to get myself primed up for Saturday. Hopefully I can touch down in enough time to be able to catch that game. But the season itself is over, and we're into one and done type situations. So things are starting to get really exciting.
I'll spend my last little bit. Colton Bubba Adams ranked 1st in total tackles, 3rd in solo tackles, 1st in assisted tackles, and 4th in sacks. Isaiah Major, great player, 8th in total tackles, 4th in solo, 11th in assisted, and 14th in sacks. And I'm gonna leave it there, Coach, man. But give Bubba his award, man. This is getting outrageous at this point. But man, and also Malik Rogers should have been second team. Give Coach. I liked your post, man. Listen, there's no argument of the best wide receiver coach in the SWAC.
I think some people took that out of context, but those guys deserved it, man. They trusted everything we talked about during the week, and Monterio was Monterio. I would have drove to the SWAC office myself had he not made first team. Had Truck not made first team, I would have drove to, because Chris Blair, the kid that just played for the Falcons, went for almost 1,000 yards and didn't make any team his last year here. And, it's just been one of those things that we expected not to happen, but I didn't know how they were going to be able to deny Monterio the opportunity to be on first team. And, I thought Aaron made a push for player of the year, but, that guy's playing, we're not. But, it was a good thing to see those guys be able to make it. And, again, you never know what the mark is. It's a ever-moving target, and just so happened that we hit it, man. So, yeah, self-proclaimed best receiver coach in the conference. Yep, you're looking at it right here.
I love it, man. Guys, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go ahead.
One thing before we close, man, and we're close. I won't grab it, but I want to do this. So anybody that has a team that's still playing, man, make sure you grab those guys. I wore this shirt so that we can talk about it a quick bit. Guys are grabbing cigars. They're celebrating wins. I'm loving it. But they got to know what cigars they're grabbing. You've just played a football game. You haven't eaten. You've drank maybe a little bit, because let's just be honest, nobody really hydrates the way they're supposed to hydrate during the game. And you go get a strong cigar. And then the trick is that you don't smoke a cigar like you smoke a cigarette, or, you know, that kind of thing. You hold the smoke. You don't inhale it. And there's going to be some guys that are going to turn green during celebrations because they're just grabbing cigars and they don't understand what they're doing. So, guys, get medium. No, get mild. Better yet, get a flavored cigar. That way you're really safe. You don't have to, you know, it doesn't have to be really, you know, a Cuban. Just get you a flavored cigar, man. Enjoy the moment. But please understand that if you smoke it the wrong way, you can turn a little green on the gills, and it might not be so nice in the locker room afterwards, especially if you got to get back on the bus and go home or fly. So understand what you're doing in this cigar game.
Shout out to my guy Black Pilot. He said inhaling's a bad idea, and that's what happened at UT Martin. Yeah, listen, I got to find my guy from UT Martin to come on here and give his experience, because he was like, "Whoa, I'm feeling a little weird right now." It's like, I bet you are.
So we'll give another show on that, man, as we get closer to championship weekend on what to get, how to cut it, how to light it, how to smoke it. Because when we beat the school up the street, one of our kids, and we can go after this, man, they're in there and they're celebrating, and I'm like, how did you cut it? We just bit it. You bit it? You don't bite a cigar. What are y'all doing? Like with teachers, coach, and then they left the label on the bottom. I'm like, man, I'm about to set yourself on fire, man. That don't stay. You take the label off. Like, come on, man. All right, I got to give a class on this thing. So, yeah, that's going to be a show. We're going to give a class on it, man, how to celebrate a championship with a cigar.
we got to get us a cigar sponsor for the show now. As much cigar talk as we've had, man. But, guys, hit the like button, subscribe on YouTube. Check out this recording. All podcast streaming platforms will be back Thursday afternoon. Round 2 FCS playoff preview, SWAC championship preview. We'll probably have more coaching stuff to talk about. Me and Coach will give the updates from what we know from across the country and coaching searches. Check out si.com/college/FCS. Man, we just dropped the freshman All-American team. You can find that on there, man. Shout out to all those guys who made freshman All-American.
Congratulations to you, man. I saw several kids saying, thank you. You got it right. Great job to you on picking that, man.
Oh, yeah. Hey, shout out to everyone. I think that's kind of crazy what happens when you partner with someone like SI, because I want to say every school that recognized the list this year for the first time, man, we still, my phone's been blowing up. Like, I'd had to like mute my Twitter because because they'll tag you, and then every retweet from every school pops up. I'm like, man, I can't even update my own social media, man. But shout out to everyone. FCS All-American list drops next Monday. And then the week after that, the third week in December, all our all-conference teams will drop for every conference across the FCS. Man, listen, been putting in a lot of work on that. Timothy's jumped in the mix, helping me out with all that as well. But guys, hit the like button, subscribe. Me and Coach will be back Thursday. But for right now, man, for my guy, Coach Fred, for myself, for the Bluebloods, FCS Football Central, we out for right now.